the Sustainability Management Master's Program, you are answering one simple question. Do you care about your future generation? If you care about your kids, their grandkids, then you care about sustainability. And a sustainability manager is someone who has the tools to make people understand how they can contribute towards developing a sustainable world. We have both part-time and full-time students. Our curriculum is 30 hours. Instead of thesis, we have a research project course and a seminar course which provides them with the kind of research background they will need to be successful in their job. But at the same time, sustainability is not always everything about environment. It also relates to the business. They will take a sustainable business strategies course. They will take a project management course. Most of these courses are going to be taught by industry people, the people who are doing sustainability on a daily basis as a part of their job. Any organization that has a large number of employees and has a physical infrastructure, they will have to have a sustainability office. If you have the passion to develop and maintain a sustainable world, come to us and we will help you shape your passion into a career which will create an impact.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I think I know some of you here who may have had some snapshots of this presentation before. So let me introduce myself again. You can call me Yan. I just recently finished my PhD in Systems Engineering at the School of Systems and Enterprises in August. So fresh grad, but if you have any questions about student life still, I'll be glad to answer. And I transitioned, as I was talking to Lucas earlier, about transitioning to the Systems Engineering Research Center, doing my postdoc now in something totally different. But I'm happy to continue pursuing sustainability as part of my passion and also my background. So a little flashback on this development of this energy dashboard. This came about through my journey in my PhD dissertation. So this is the byproduct of it, a little part of what I've written. So here's the outline for today's presentation. I'll give you a brief introduction as to why I'm doing this. You can also hear a little bit of the problem overview overall, what are the motivation factors, and case study, why did I pick Stevens? The methodology I went ahead. So for those who are pursuing thesis or heading towards your PhD and doing your dissertation, I'll give a little snapshot about what it entails and my proposed solution for this problem as well as the conclusion. Some slides are a bit wordy, but this is for the online presentation, so people who can't make it can actually watch it and read the slides at their convenience later. So a little bit about why I did this, right? So we know right now a lot of people are moving towards urban areas. So cities are being swamped with more people needing energy. Everyone has smartphones, everyone has a couple, some of you. Some may actually have more than one laptop, so then all these devices need energy. As we see, cities are also central locations for economic activities. So you move to New York City because there's a job, right? You move so that you can be closer, so you can have a better quality of life. But what happens then? All these people in one city that's already overpopulated is creating a lot of problems. And one of the problems it's creating is in the energy field. We find that approximately 60 to 80% of the energy consumed in cities worldwide are contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions, which I know is a topic dear to your hearts because you're working on sustainability management. And just a brief overview why GHG is so important. Well, we know it traps heat and then making the earth warmer, acting as a blanket that insulates the earth, and then increasing our global temperatures. So here are some trends of the world urbanization population here. Obviously, we're in a more developed region, so you can tell from 1950 to 2050, we're expecting to see a tremendous growth also in less developed regions. This is a significant jump, right? We see from 18% going up to close to over 60%. So that's big for the less developed regions. More so for our urban, heavily densely populated cities that are actually dealing with this situation as well. So that's a little bit of the motivation as to why I'm doing this. For all those engineers out there or who are pursuing a science degree or something of that sort, you need to understand why we are doing this. There is a grand challenge out there. There are several, but one of them that I'm focused on is to restore and improve urban infrastructure as stated by the National Academy of Engineering. That is a huge umbrella, and with that, they also talked about having good design. So if you're in management or you're doing a lot of the design work, you understand that you're doing it so that you can improve the transportation energy sector, waterway systems, and maybe also create more sustainable urban environments. In my case, I'm focused more on the energy sector, again, based on my background in electrical engineering. There is a need to provide that modernization of the US electric system. And this is great, right? So how is this helping? How am I contributing towards that field? Another motivation factor, we know, I will get into, I think you're seeing this divergent trend, we're talking about climate change here. So there are historical trends that carbon dioxide is also increasing. There's temperature anomaly. This is recorded by 4 different international science institutions that are all claiming that there are abnormal temperatures, there's something wrong, and we know what's wrong, right? So the purpose of this research that I conducted was to explore the fundamental characteristics and approaches so that we can develop this sustainable energy system, whether it's considered a microgrid or smart grid within a smart city. Within that, we are using Stevens as a university that is the case study and living laboratory to examine its sustainable energy system as a smart city. I'm using a bottom-up approach, so this is my lens of how I use grassroots movement to come up with this research so that I can contribute towards disseminating the energy information to create awareness on energy conservation and also giving people a little background about what has happened and is going to happen in the Stevens energy systems. So again, this is hopefully a data collection from all the previous energy usage and also consumption so that will serve as a living document. So I have this idea, I want to pass on something to the future generations. You want to be sustainable in that sense. How do I do it? So that, if someone dies tomorrow, we still know what's going on, where are the different energy storage systems, if we have any, or any other systems that we may have. So there is a legacy that we leave behind. I'm sure all of you know about this. So why sustainability? We get into this work because it's something that was coined back in 1987. This was by the World Commission on Environment and Development. It's a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So it has 2 concepts, right? The first concept is of needs. We want to provide, especially essential needs to the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. And the idea of limitations imposed by state of technology and social organization on the environment's ability to meet the present and future needs. So we want to be sustainable in our needs now, but also for your grandchildren and great-grandchildren to come. And just a little bit more about the report, we want to be able to provide and protect the environment, recognize the rights of poor countries to improve the well-being of the citizens, and acknowledge the rights of future generations. More can be found in the report, but that was the basis of this research as well. And if some of you know, the UN has some sustainable development goals. I think the research that I'm doing pertains to quite a few of them, and some of the research that you may be doing or may be interested may be found here, and you can actually Google and find out more information about them. So another motivation factor, we talked about carbon emissions going up. Where is it going up? I think last week's presenter touched on this, and he focused on the transportation sector. Well, I'm looking at electricity. We can see that it's one of the major contributors, with 31% of our GHG emissions coming from that. And out of that, 82% of it is carbon dioxide. There is also, not to be forgotten, methane and nitrous oxide. So these are the main 3 GHG gases that you want to keep in mind. With that, okay, so now I'm focused more about universities and schools and buildings that we're using, right? That's where most of the energy is. 61% actually is on commercial buildings. And our buildings, for my research purposes, I've classified, for example, offices as administrative offices. I've also done primary uses of maybe lodging as for the dorms, as well as education for classrooms. So these are the different numbers I'm using and I'm comparing with. Now I dive into a little bit of my other literature review where I talked about smart grids. So in order to understand the energy system, you also need to understand where it's going. And NIST has coordinated the development of a smart grid framework. So this is so that we can increase our use of smart technologies. We want to deploy smart technologies, for example, at Stevens. They are actually actively implementing a lot of smart metering on campus so that each building will be able to monitor the energy in real time or near real time. And with that, then we can maybe deploy energy storage technologies, or we can participate in heat shaving technologies so that we can reduce it. So this is thinking on the national scale, but think about it, just in our home ground here, we can actually, follow a lot of these examples and try to develop our own smart grid here. And another smaller part of our smart grid would be a microgrid, if some of you are not familiar with it. So you have this group of interconnected loads so that you can actually share, distribute, or you can store energy so that you can use it later on. It can disconnect or it can connect. So we talked about hurricanes last week also, that's affecting a lot of the different states. So with a microgrid, if you have energy storage capacity, like Elon Musk is sending it out to Puerto Rico right now, then they are able to store a lot of the solar energy that's being produced so that it's not wasted and that people can actually use it. So you have a microgrid so that people in the community can share the energy or they can store it and they can use it. And if there is something going on with the main power plant, they are able to disconnect and yet still be able to power up their community because of the microgrid. With that, I focus more into my smart city concept. So in a smart city, you have people, obviously, you have the transportation sector. You, as I talked earlier, you need energy for your, electrical appliances. You need to have smart living conditions. You need to have good health, mobility, environment. There's a lot in this umbrella for a smart city. So this is where you want to live, right? Obviously, you don't want to live somewhere where they're being wasteful with their energy or where they're not mobile and people have to, drive an hour instead of being able to walk like in Hoboken. So how can you implement a lot of these smart city initiatives? I believe with the piece that I'm providing, this is a piece of the puzzle for the energy sector so that it can be smarter in our infrastructure. With that, I've covered a lot of different topics, and so now I'll give you a conceptual model. So this is what's going on in my mental map here. We actually use a tool called Systemogram. So this tells a story, a little storyboard of what I'm doing. So we here at Stevens, whether we're a group of students, staff, faculty, researchers, we want to establish partnerships. So for smart cities to happen, it doesn't just happen by our own, right? We have to work with the city officials. Maybe you're getting the community involved. You may get sponsors to provide the sensors, for example, or you may partner up with government agencies. You want to address the things in the red bubble. For example, in our case, we want to think about the different social implications, economic, environmental, and human implications of climate change. What can we do as a citizen here in Hoboken right now to contribute towards that greater whole complex issue that we have? So these effects can be minimized if we have a sustainable energy system, which we're working on, and that can be improved by having a sustainable energy awareness, which is increased by using an energy dashboard in this case, which is the proposed solution, that can also be used as a central repository knowledge and impact the university as a smart city concept. We want to be the prototype to prove to the city that if this works, this whole concept, it can help Hoboken be a smarter city, and that improves the quality of life of who? It's us. We are staying here, so this is helping us, so that we can ensure sustainable life for our future generations. So it gives you, if you are going towards your thesis or your projects or your dissertation, this helps you to give you that big picture so that you can explain it to your professors or your friends about what you're doing. And within that, we have, for the energy dashboard, I want to be able to influence energy behavior just by showing people how much energy they're using. I want to be able to impact the sustainable energy system as we are developing this tool to help enhance the visibility and energy transparency. And so these are some of the concepts that that I touched on and I talked about, but I will be focused on the dashboard. A little bit about Stevens. So we all know we are in the US, we are in New Jersey, where there are initiatives to make Hoboken a smart city, which makes us an ideal location to implement this and to be able to help the city towards their smart city goals. So again, because we are in an urban coastal city, that helps a lot because again, I talked about the urbanization trends and the problems that if we are not facing now, we will be facing soon. And also the unique environment here, right? Because I had a fellowship that covered me because it was an innovation and entrepreneurship fellowship. So you think outside the box. If I'm coming up with a theory, if I'm coming up with a tool, how is this benefiting? How could this be something that could be tangible or that could be sold or could be patented or could be used for the greater good, right? So I've used Stevens as our little backyard here to create this energy dashboard. A little bit on the demographics. So if you don't know yet, there are about almost 6,000 students. There are about 1,800 who live on campus. We have over 1,200 employees, and we have over almost 1.5 million of, square feet of buildings. So we have a lot of buildings which need to be a little more energy efficient. This is interesting because I don't know if you know, in 2015, Stevens was awarded the silver recognition for the STARS, which is a self-reporting tool that ASHI has to get higher education to participate and report on their sustainability efforts and initiatives so that you get points, and once you get the points, then you rank yourself and you compare yourself with other universities. It's a good resource because we are members. You can actually go in and find a lot of information, case studies on other schools, or any other information. So if you're interested in starting a program or studying a research project, you're able to go online and find out more about that. And then a little bit of what I found before. Here is Stevens. We have a map of some of the cogen, solar, and this gives you just a brief overview. If you don't know what is cogen, cogen is actually combined heat and power. So as we are using natural gas to produce electricity, we are then redirecting the waste, which is heat, to heat up our hot waters and use it for heat in our buildings, which is why we have this nice cohesive environment right now. So it's used for dual purposes, right? We're not wasting the heat, we're generating it here. And like the speaker last week was mentioning, right, natural gas, yeah, it's still a part of a fossil fuel, but if you compare it to actually buy electricity from the grid, it is better, and that we can regenerate and reuse that heat for our purposes here. Here is another brief graph to show you our general consumption. So the green line on the top is our electricity. As you can tell, from 2006 to 2016, we are actually reducing our energy from the electricity grid. The top blue line is actually our natural gas consumption. It is also going a little down. We have the natural gas consumption, which is going up from cogen, as well as the electricity consumption from cogen that's also going up, and the solar that is going up steadily, but we're not quite there yet. Right now it's about 3 to 4% of our total energy usage, which maybe there could be potential of increasing that, right? So just
one question.
Sure.
What is the difference between the first two natural gas consumptions? I understand cogen, university directive wise.
Mm-hmm.
What is natural
so
gas?
Natural gas is one we purchase from the grid. So we're buying it from. One is the consumption from whatever we use from the grid, and the other one is actually whatever we are using from the cogen. Sorry.
Do we generate natural? So
we don't generate the natural gas.
We get the supply of natural gas from the
Correct.
grid, right? Part of it goes to cogen.
Yes.
Should I see it as like supply and demand?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
I see.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And so here is just again numbers, charts. I don't want to bore you with this of our usage. And again, electricity costs, comparing it with PPA is power purchase agreements. If you don't know that, there are cogen power purchase agreements and solar power purchase agreements here at Stevens, as well as then the conventional grid usage. And the next slide covers natural gas consumption, and the cost. Now I'll give you a little bit of strategic goals that Stevens have. If you are not aware, Stevens is still continuing to expand, and they plan to expand even further to increase the population of the undergraduate students as well as the graduate students. This may not, bother you at all right now, but if next time you're looking for housing or if you're looking for a parking spot, this is going to be a big issue. And not only that, think about the amount of energy that will be needed to power up all these buildings and all our devices as we're on campus. There's also talks about trying to improve the physical infrastructure. And one of the goals also is for us to be a model of sustainability through innovative energy incentives, policies, and programs so that we can help, be better in sustainability. So if you're working on any projects, or you need any ideas, you need any, inclination, this would be one that would direct you that Stevens is actively pursuing sustainability. And so if you have any projects and ideas, you want to implement it here, that would be great. Some specific to the energy sustainability, again, I talked about ASHI, so we have participated in that Association for Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. And this is a national, rating where you can actually go online and find all the different universities. There is platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And then there are some who just report information, but they don't have enough to get any ratings. It's quite impressive because Stevens submitted this in 2015, and it automatically got to the silver level. Obviously, so there has been a lot of work that has been ongoing, but it just takes someone somewhere to actually report, measure, monitor, and have them all out in this so that it's publicly available. So it's again showing how Stevens is committed towards sustainability and also being more transparent in our efforts. Obviously, after silver, the next thing we're going for is gold. And again, all the efforts that you're doing, whether you're going to school, you're taking classes, if you're proposing a new sustainability class, that helps towards the scoring as well. It's a very comprehensive framework for reporting. So it's not just getting solar or using less, water bottles and a lot of other things like student initiatives, student projects. They all contribute towards this. And so it's great if you are interested to participate and promote that. We also participate in the Department of Energy's Better Buildings Challenge. So we are also trying to, again, increase our energy transparency there. We want to reduce the demands, and how do we do that? We participate, we share best practices so that other people in the industry or other institutions can give us ideas, and we share our best practices as well. With that, one of my committee members, Dr. Greg Cassandra, is actually the representative for the Higher Education Steering Committee, so if you have any questions or concerns, you can also talk to him. One thing that also happened in 2015, if you don't know, Stevens decommissioned the central steam plant back then. And we really then pumped up and got more into the combined heat and power. I talked about earth studying with the submetering. They're using more LED. And then again, Stevens is committed towards reducing the energy intensity by 20% by 2024, based on the 2014 baseline. So there's a lot of work to be done. And I think a lot of us can contribute towards that goal. So back in 2015, during Earth Week, this was a sustainability map that was sent out to the entire Stevens community. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but here it is. It shows just, a plain map. It tells you where everything is at for solar panel installations, our cogens, water bottle fill stations. Actually, they've increased a lot of that as well. So, if you want to find one, you hopefully will be able to. And recycling and transportation. But I thought this is a bit static, right? It doesn't talk to you. It just shows you these little graphics. And I was thinking, how can we make this better? How can we make this more applicable, more interactive? And so this slowly brewed towards what I was working on. So again, to cover more on the power purchase agreements, for solar, we participate in this with a couple of companies here, as you can see, Sun Edison and Sunlight General. With that, back maybe almost 9 years ago, we committed towards them using our rooftops for solar. And if you don't know yet, all those buildings and parking lots and all have solar. In return, they are providing those panels, zero cost for us, zero operational cost, maintenance, capital, in exchange for just the site, putting it there, and us buying solar electricity for them at a reduced fixed rate. I think it's about 8 cents per kilowatt, if I'm not mistaken, instead of the 12, 13, or the variable rate or increasing rate of electricity out in the grid. So that significantly reduced our energy costs. But again, so in return, we're not paying for anything to fix it. So if the baseball hits it again, you report it to them, they come out, they fix it. The power purchase agreement is ending soon, so I think they're negotiating to maybe there could be terms of replacing the panels, getting more efficient ones, because again, these were implemented almost 10 years ago. So it's about time there are more efficient ones that we can use so that we can generate more electricity with the limited roof space that we have. So again, all this started back in 2011, so you can tell the different contributions from the different companies. Now, coming towards my research methodology. So just a snapshot of what I've done. So if you're interested, go for your PhD or you're doing your thesis, or you want to have something, a project like this where you can actually, find your stakeholders. You want to make sure you explore the area that you want to be in, right? So if you're interested in waste, look at what are we doing here at Waste? What is the statistics for our state? What are we, how are we improving? Where is there a gap that you can fill? So you explore the area, then you come up with your questions, what things you want to address, or what is your brilliant idea that you want to solve to reduce waste. I then moved on to the data collection phase. So that's a lot of meeting. So it's meeting a lot of people here on campus. So like facilities operations, we have energy consultants on campus. So meeting with them on a regular basis, getting involved. I volunteered myself to be part of the sustainability committee that's at Stevens. So if some of you don't know and you want to be interested and you want to be involved, let me know. We have monthly meetings. So once a month, 1 hour, you meet with all the different stakeholders on campus, students, staff, faculty. I was complaining last week about Baguio not having a water filling station. So, they're working towards putting the bottled water filling stations there. So if you have any grievances or any ideas for improvements, this would be the place to go. Or, to be able to email and channel any of your ideas to them. With that, I was able to again meet up with a lot of the different stakeholders to gather a lot of their input. What's going on campus? How can we help them improve? And also gathering the information, because I was focused on the energy sector, so I'm focusing on gathering a lot of the energy data. The analysis phase, obviously, if you know and if you're working on analysis, you clean up all your data. You want to make sure you get all the different parameters from your stakeholders. And with that, I decided to develop that visualization tool based on the data. Because instead of seeing spreadsheets of data from the past years of electricity, if you have a full interactive visualization, that will entice people more. Or if you want to just get a quick glimpse of what Stevens was doing in terms of their energy usage since 2006, you're able to all see it in one place. So again, this helps as we're moving towards the 21st century, going to the digital age, having everything electronic, moving away from just spreadsheets or having to go from point A to meet point B to meet point C, and that could take months, if not years, to try to gather up all your data. So the idea is to have a place where it's central so that people can all access the data that they want or that they need from the university. Next, I also did an interview study phase so that I can actually get a validation of the model that I created. So I talked to different stakeholders. I got an IRB. If you do not know what an IRB is, before you conduct any interviews or talk to anyone about your project, where you are soliciting their subject matter experts, or you're getting a lot of their feedback, they're considered sort of human subjects. So make sure you get approval from the university. There is some paperwork to be done. You need a faculty sponsor to make sure you're following the protocol, that you're not abusing them. I know we're not collecting blood samples, but for some, just to be able to talk to people and gather their feedback, make sure that they're not going to be retaliated against, they wouldn't lose their jobs because of them talking to you. You promise to keep their information confidential and such. So that's the long, detailed, and long process with the IRB. So if you are going to be working with subjects, make sure you get that approval beforehand. And then even before that, you come up with your interview script, decide on what you want to ask them about for your project or for your case study. And then once you get all the consent forms, then you can talk to them, and then you can share your project with them. And that's what I did so that I can collect feedback from my tool. And ultimately, I reported on it based on the dissertation that I submitted in August, as well as reporting the findings to the stakeholders to answer all my research questions. So again, I mentioned earlier, some of the feedback I received from the dashboard was actually from some of the participants that are here. And I thank you for that. Without you, I wouldn't have graduated, so much appreciated. But here are some of the steps that I used for my case study. So it developed into, okay, I want to contribute towards climate change. I'm interested in smart cities. My background's in the energy field. How can I put all the pieces of the puzzles together so that I can develop something where I can contribute towards, the findings of a new tool or something that can help the community, and then address that global phenomena of climate change. So that was my path towards discovering, this tool. So the solution is dashboards. They are not new. They have been there, but I was using that in particular for Stevens because we don't have one yet, and also the whole entire process of how I went about with the case study. So what is dashboard? We all know, you use it, you see it in, ads, or people are using it so that you can communicate your ideas. You want it to be in a clear, effective, and efficient manner. And in our case, with the dashboard, we want it to be something so that we can promote energy transparency. So how can we share all this data, in a safe way so that we won't get, hacked or anything like that, so that we can actually increase the awareness of sustainability here on campus. Just a quote account, an ounce of information is worth a pound of data. An ounce of knowledge is worth a pound of information. An ounce of understanding is worth a pound of knowledge, and an ounce of wisdom is worth a pound of understanding. So a lot of what you're thinking of, information you gather, the data that comes about, and then you talk about the knowledge, right? You're here seeking knowledge, you're going for your different programs, you're here listening to the talk, hopefully you'll learn something new. And then what do you do with it? You want to create that understanding so that then you can have that wisdom and you can be the guru in whatever field you decide to pursue. So hopefully this will enlighten you a little bit. And now I get into the dashboard at Stevens. So again, this aims to transform research into practice. So I wanted to have a little bit more on a hands-on, instead of just a dissertation, instead of something that is filed and kept safe, in a corner, to be able to share a little bit of my work from a holistic point, where Stevens has, somewhere where we can improve. We need to improve in our energy transparency. How can I help in that? So I use both the bottom up, which is I'm going down grassroots, trying to dig out information about our energy systems, and also a top-down approach, looking at the bigger picture and why we should do this and how this is helping the university, so that we can hopefully implement an energy dashboard. So this is a customized analytical tool that was created from scratch. Again, based on the different perspectives, I've talked to different staff, faculty, students on campus, looking at other dashboards out there and also comparing to see what are the impacts, challenges, and strategies for this approach. And in this dashboard, I talk about different indicators, metrics, so that we can measure our energy consumption from the different sources, our GHG emissions, and also building profiles. Like ourselves, you have every year if you go for your annual checkup, you get a report to tell you how well you're doing or not. And so same thing with buildings. No one is actually going out there to look and monitor. So this is somewhere where we can actually check on buildings to see how they're doing in terms of the energy usage. So here is the dashboard that I created on Tableau. I only took snapshots because I wanted to make sure this runs smoothly and that I wouldn't interfere if I use the internet. So just something you can imagine, maybe running through the screens along the hallway, or it could be something on the website, so that you can actually learn more about the energy usage, and hopefully we can also instill that in the community. The second page is this interactive dashboard I actually combined with Google Fusion Tables. So you can actually, in the real tool, you can click on the different buildings on campus. As you can tell, I've divided them into 5 different primary uses, as I talked earlier, because these are the main contributing energy usage ones. There's the residential in purple, the blue ones are academic buildings, red administrative, orange are the community buildings, and the blue ones are labs. Labs use a lot of energy. If some of you are using any of the tools or the equipment, you will realize that actually they use up a lot of energy. So that's one way to tell how those labs are doing. So again, in this tool, you would be able to just click on it if this is an interactive board, and you'll be able to learn about the buildings. So for example, in this case, I clicked on the EAS, that castle building, right? So you learn a little bit of history. I found out it was built in 1870. It's over 73,000 square feet. It's made of brick and wood. Why is this important? And there are more, except it just didn't show on this screen. This is important, so if you are a construction management student, or if you are a company, or you're a sustainability management student and you want to learn more about the health of the building, or the origins of the building, and learn a little bit of how this impacts energy, or how this is impacting the water usage, this will give you a little bit of glimpse. So if you're an incoming student and you're also interested at Stevens, you can find out a little bit more about each building on campus. So think back about that static sustainability map that we have, right? So this gives it a more interactive use. Again, it's tied with the Google tool, so if you click on that little icon, you can actually get directions. So again, if you're a new student or your parents are visiting you on campus, they'll be able to direct themselves to here, so it's very user-friendly and also interactive. This is another snapshot I took. So if I'm looking into the Babel building, this is where I work on the 5th floor. You can find out it was one of the recent buildings that was built in 2003. It's about 90,000 square feet. And again, you can find out a little bit about the construction material. And just to give an FYI, here is how much energy we used in 2016. The energy cost for the building is over, well, $284,000. And the EUI, which is the energy use intensity of the building, is at 128.5. So you find out again a little snapshot about the buildings. And that works for all the other icons as well. In the tool, I also built this interactive snapshot so you can actually look at our total energy consumption based on the different average temperatures throughout the 10 years. So instead of, again, looking at the spreadsheets, this is something more interactive. If you click on the different years, let's say you want to focus only on 2016, you can click on it and you can actually find out what was going on in 2016. These are cut off, so actually they are more of physical year because Stevens recorded a lot of their information based on physical year. So for example, physical year of 2016 is actually from mid-2015 to mid-2016. So a lot of that information is provided here. And then once you click on it, it changes the variations of the different energy consumption and the weather data for you. The next thing, if you want to dig deeper, if you want to find out a little bit more about electricity usage. So the first graph, maybe for the general consumers, and then if you want to find out a little bit more and you're interested to do a dive deep into the gas consumption, for example, you can actually look at the different consumptions. I'll start with the graph on the top with the electricity usage. The top one in green, the bars are actually our cogen electricity usage, and then the ones in red is definitely from the grid of what we have been using for the past 10 years. And finally, solar. They are not to scale, I will warn you, because if I did it by scale, you wouldn't be able to see much of solar here. But as you can tell, the scale is in the millions for the grid electricity, so we are using a lot. And it correlates, and it follows the temperature trends in our region, right? As it goes higher, we are using more energy. As it goes lower, we are using less, because obviously during the winter times, we use more gas. And it talks a little bit about, and with this, you can actually see, for example, cogen started when? In the beginning of 2009. So it tells a story. And if you want to find out a little bit more, solar was actually implemented back then, early 2006. They started with that technology. A little bit of it, and then it's growing steadily, and it has, and also it tells you a little bit of the variance. So if you want to look, again, into specific years, let's say you want to look straight into 2015, why is it that we have those abnormal times? Why is it making more and we're not using enough? So this tells a story, and you'll be able to look into the different energy trends and also find out the patterns and abnormalities in the case of our electricity usage. The next graph shows you the gas usage, and also you can see the gas in terms of the gas that we use as well as the cogen that we use from the cogen units.
In summer, when the buildings are not fully utilized, does the university sell back electricity to the grid or just the capacities?
We use it all. I think a lot of the solar is being channeled to different buildings, so we actually use them.
How about the cogen?
The cogen, I think there is an issue with the cogen. Sometimes, yes, it is overproducing and we don't know what to do with it. I'm not too clear as to whether they do sell it back or it just ends up being wasted. From what I hear, some of it is wasted. So maybe it was that back then we got the wrong size cogen. Maybe we need to, rethink our cogen, get a smaller unit, or repurpose the heat and use it somewhere else. But if any of you go swimming in the pool, you'll realize the temperature is 70 degrees all year long, thanks to combined heat and power. So a lot of the heat is actually generated and used in the pool to keep your pool in a good temperature even during the winter time. Next thing I get into, this is a box plot. So I'm coming up with different graphics so I can entice different users. I talk a little bit about what is an energy use intensity. If you don't know yet, it is the key performance metric for any buildings. And this is mandated by the EPA. They use it so they can measure how much you use and how much you use efficiently over the building square feet. As you can see in the purple boxes, to correlate to the purple little icons you saw on the map earlier, these are all the residential buildings on campus and also off campus actually. And then some are, the blue ones are the academic buildings, followed by the orange, which are administrative, the red are the labs, and then the green ones are the community usage. And again, you can play with the different icons, so if you click on a certain one, you want to only focus on the labs, you can actually look at all the different labs, and you can compare them. So for example, this is the entire energy use intensity for all the different buildings. You can tell residential take up almost more than half of it, right? And then if you want to pinpoint further, I want to find out why these two buildings here in residential, 831 CPT and Hayden Hall, are using so much energy, and or their energy use intensity is actually higher than the rest. So there might be something going on. Either they're not using it well, or there's just a lot of students, and so a lot of energy is being used there. So that's something that you can look into if you want to. And again, it applies to the rest of the buildings. Another different snapshot here for the most recent 2016, you can actually look at the EOI. You can compare it with the gross square feet as well as how much energy it's costing the school. And you can compare it with all the different buildings. Again, you can pick the different primary uses, and you're able to select and figure out if you want to again focus your research or your projects on labs. You can look at that. The next thing, thinking of those construction students, here is another comparison. So if you want to play with the different ones and you want to find out which buildings are actually made of brick and wood, those are maybe the ones that you want to improve on in terms of the building envelope. I know last year there was a student group that worked on the senior design on the envelope of House Center. It took them, a while to figure out how much energy was being used there, how can we improve it better. So this would help the students in terms of finding out a project that they want to work on. The next thing, I'm not an environmental engineer, but I know some of you are passionate about greenhouse gas emissions. So I looked into how much we contribute towards our total GHG emissions on campus. And this is compared with the EPA's E-grade data based on our region. So the black lines are those annual ratios, I guess, from the EPA. And then the red one is our total CO2 emissions, followed by methane and nitrous oxide in the bottom. So I'm comparing it throughout the years with the annual ones around the regions. And from here, you can actually see a breakdown further. The top blue one is actually our CO2 emissions from grid electricity. That's how much we produce. Obviously, it's the most. Compared to, let's say, CO2 from cogen, it's not that much. Cogen from natural gas, as well as cogen, carbon dioxide from cogen gas. So one is missing here. Figure it out? Solar. Solar doesn't produce GHG. So this is another little hooray for solar. So again, something good to point out. I've talked to some undergrad students or some even high school students. So this is something good that we can show that we are not contributing because we are using solar. Then we look into methane, and so you can again compare it. I will not get into it further. And finally, nitrous oxide. So if you're an environmental engineer and you want to focus on a specific gas in a specific region, our school is a prototype. And if you want to have more accurate, maybe you can put in a different sensor and you can figure out all the different gases that might be contributing towards the pollution of our air. Finally, I have different snapshots. So based on the electricity consumption that we do, what is the GHG emissions? And I compared them top and bottom, as you can tell. You can play with the sliders, so you can look into specific years. You want to look just for the last 5 years, you're able to do that. And the same with cogen electricity, natural gas, and cogen. All these are the interactive tools that are on the dashboard. Not to bore you, again, only if and only if you are focused on natural gas, for example, you can go in there and you can look at natural gas. If you want electricity, you go in and you find that out. So my conclusion is this was actually part of my dissertation study so that we can tackle climate change. So how can we do our part? How can I do my part here, right? Well, while at Stevens, so that we can create that awareness and so that we can impact our sustainable energy systems. Again, I documented all this from my lens so that I can help and contribute towards that goal. I know that this is not a one-size-fits-all solution, so if you go to a different school, maybe it's a larger school, or maybe they don't have any monitoring, then they won't be able to, come up with a lot of these metrics. But again, this helps and provides the variables, considerations, methodology, and also the analysis that maybe helps them to compare it with their school, or also maybe provides them with a starting point so that they can launch a project like this in their own school. Again, the scalability is very, very crucial here because at Stevens, we have about 6,000 people. Hoboken, it's 50,000. So we are 1/10 of that. So if we can implement something like this, if we can monitor our energy usage here, think about the city, and then you think about the bigger cities and how we can then contribute towards energy transparency in urban cities. So this is hopefully used as a central knowledge repository. So again, if you're looking for information, you go to this one-stop shop and you find out a little bit more about what Stevens has to offer in terms of the history in energy systems. We also want to learn about our transformative energy system so that we have that energy data transparency so that we can advance our goals. We can meet all those check boxes, so hopefully we'll be goal. It actually is rating. And more than the rating, I mean, you're living here, you're going to school here, whether it's the 2 years, 4 years, I've been here 4 years. So, again, so that you can actually contribute and maybe, you may raise your kids here or you may start your business here. And these may be some things that you want to look into when you are choosing a place to live and raise a family. This is my contribution towards tackling climate change, and I hope it, has that collective vision and support from the different entities that I talked with. And I'll leave you with this last quote, that climate change disregards national borders and the impacts of climate change affect people everywhere in the world. So we can't just say that, we're gonna be the most healthy and the most clean and the most energy efficient, city or country in the world. Guess who's next door? Right? Air just does not stop right here in our boundaries. It, goes and you travel, you get, impacted with the different emissions. So everywhere you go, hopefully you'll be able to make a difference. Here's a quote, do what you can with what you have, where you are. It's an optimistic one, hopefully again. I know some of y'all are coming up with your projects, or if you have a presentation, you have something you want to work on, this will hopefully inspire you to working, in something that will be useful. Another quote that I would like to quote from Obama in 2008 is, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek to be. So I'm not going political, but change can happen anywhere and anytime, and if you are just, going green, walking instead of driving, turning off the switch, or coming up with a project that would help in sustainability, I think then we have done our part, we have made the change, and hopefully we'll make a better change. So thank you for your attention. I've ended about good on time.